garden mystery. In a world perpetually draped in the muted velvets of a twilight that never quite surrendered to the harsh caress of noon, where ancient cobblestones wept perpetual moisture and the very air hummed with the somnolent breath of forgotten tales, lived Leonard, a sculptor whose hands, though calloused and often stained with the dust of his craft, possessed an almost preternatural delicacy, as if sculpted themselves from the gossamer threads of moonbeams. His days were a slow, deliberate waltz with form and shadow, a silent communion with the inert matter he coaxed into vibrant life, transforming rough-hewn blocks of marble and granite into figures imbued with a melancholic grace, each curve and contour singing a silent elegy to a beauty just beyond reach. His atelier, a cavernous space tucked away at the very edge of the city's melancholic sprawl, a place where the scent of freshly cut stone mingled with the faint, ethereal perfume of rain-soaked earth, was a sanctuary from the ceaseless whisperings of the mundane, a realm where the echoes of his chisels were the only true inhabitants, save for the occasional, fleeting shadow of a raven that would perch upon the gabled roof, its beady eyes seeming to gaze upon his creations with an almost human understanding. Leonard himself was a creature of quiet habits, his existence woven into the very fabric of the hushed, twilight-kissed city, a city where the gas lamps flickered with an anachronistic charm, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to stretch and contort like the spectral limbs of ancient trees. His hair, the color of twilight moss, often fell in soft disarray around a face that held the pale, refined beauty of a forgotten cameo. His eyes, the hue of storm-laden skies, perpetually held a distant, contemplative gaze, as if perpetually searching for the elusive forms that resided within the very heart of the stone awaiting his touch. He spoke little, preferring the eloquent language of his hands, the rhythmic tap-tap-tap of hammer against chisel, the rasp of sandpaper smoothing a nascent limb, the hushed whisper of his breath as he coaxed a final, delicate curve from an unyielding slab. His solitude was not a burden but a chosen companion, a silent confidant that allowed him to delve deeper into the intricate labyrinth of his own creative spirit, to converse with the nascent forms that yearned for liberation from their stony prisons. The world outside, with its clamor and its fleeting passions, seemed a distant, indistinct hum, a discordant symphony that he could mercifully filter out through the thick, sound-absorbing walls of his creative sanctuary. The city itself was a character, a sentient entity that breathed with the slow, deliberate rhythm of centuries, its ancient buildings leaning together like conspiratorial elders, their stone faces weathered by countless seasons of rain and wind, their windows like unblinking eyes reflecting the perpetually muted sky. It was a place where forgotten alleys twisted and turned like the labyrinthine pathways of a dream, where hidden courtyards lay cloaked in perpetual shade, their air thick with the scent of damp earth and the ghost of long-vanished blooms. The inhabitants moved with a somnambulant grace, their voices soft, almost hesitant, as if fearful of disturbing the city's eternal slumber. Time here seemed to unravel at a different pace, a viscous, honeyed flow that stretched moments into eternities, allowing for a profound absorption in the minutiae of existence. The subtle shift of light on an ancient wall, the solitary drip of water from a moss-laden gargoyle, the melancholic sigh of the wind as it wound its way through narrow thoroughfares. It was a city of whispers and shadows, a place where the line between reality and dream often blurred, where the past seemed to press in on the present with an almost tangible weight, and the very air vibrated with the presence of countless lives lived and long forgotten. Leonard had recently inherited a small, ancient house on the outskirts of this enigmatic city, a dwelling that seemed to have sprung organically from the very earth, its walls of crumbling stone cloaked in a thick mantle of ivy, its windows like dark, unseeing eyes peering out from beneath heavy, moss-laden brows. It was a place steeped in the silent echoes of forgotten lives, its every creak and groan a whispered secret from the past. The previous owner, an elderly recluse whose name had long faded from the collective memory of the townsfolk, was said to have possessed an affinity for the peculiar, a quiet eccentricity that had only served to deepen the aura of mystery surrounding the property. The garden, overgrown and wild, was a tangled wilderness of ancient rose bushes and gnarled fruit trees, their branches intertwining like the skeletal fingers of long-dead giants, reaching towards a sky that seemed perpetually on the verge of weeping. It was a place that exhaled a faint, earthy aroma, mingled with the lingering scent of damp stone and the ghostly perfume of blooms that had long since withered. The house, with its quietude and its pervasive sense of history, was a welcome balm to Leonard's spirit, a natural extension of his own contemplative nature. He found solace in its silent rooms, in the way the light filtered through the dusty panes, painting intricate patterns upon the ancient floorboards, in the gentle creaking of the stairs as he ascended to his small, sun-dappled studio on the uppermost floor. Here, he had set up his tools, his chisels glinting like forgotten stars, his blocks of unworked stone awaiting the magic of his touch. The sounds of the city, muted by the distance and the thick stone walls, became a gentle, almost imperceptible hum, a background melody that only enhanced the quiet sanctity of his creative process. He spent his days in a state of suspended animation, his senses attuned to the subtle vibrations of the stone, the whisper of his own breath, the slow, deliberate movements of his hands as they coaxed form from formlessness. One evening, as the last vestiges of twilight were dissolving into the deeper indigo of night, and the first tentative stars pricked the heavens like scattered diamonds, Leonard found himself drawn to the neglected wilderness that lay beyond the skeletal remains of what was once a small, formal patio. He had only glimpsed it from afar, a tangled mass of dark foliage and gnarled branches, and a faint, almost imperceptible curiosity had begun to stir within him, a silent prompting to explore the secrets it might hold. Pushing aside a curtain of thick, clinging ivy that had woven itself into an impenetrable barrier, he stepped into an unknown realm, a place that seemed to exist outside the bounds of conventional time and space. The air grew immediately cooler, imbued with an almost palpable sense of ancient stillness, and the scent of damp earth and unseen blossoms became more pronounced, a rich, heady aroma that seemed to fill his very lungs. The path before him, barely discernible beneath a thick carpet of fallen leaves and moss, wound its way through a dense thicket of gnarled ancient trees, their branches entwined like the arthritic fingers of long-forgotten giants, their leaves a muted tapestry of deepest green. As he ventured deeper, the light, already fading, seemed to diminish further, swallowed by the overarching canopy, creating an atmosphere of profound, almost reverent gloom. The only sounds were the soft rustle of his own clothes against the fallen leaves and the distant, mournful hoot of an unseen owl, a sound that seemed to echo the melancholic beauty of the deepening twilight. A sense of profound peace, mingled with a subtle frisson of anticipation, settled over him, a feeling that he was on the cusp of discovering something truly extraordinary, something that had been waiting patiently for centuries to reveal itself. And then, as he rounded a bend in the winding path, through a veil of hanging moss that parted like a stage curtain, it appeared before him. A garden, unlike any he had ever seen, a place that seemed to have materialized from the pages of a forgotten dream. It was not a garden of vibrant blooms and manicured lawns, but a realm of stone, an ethereal landscape sculpted by time and an unseen hand. Moss-covered statues, their forms obscured by the verdant embrace of centuries, stood sentinel amidst the gnarled roots of ancient trees, their faces eroded by the ceaseless caress of wind and rain, their features softened into an almost abstract beauty. Some were draped in thick cloaks of ivy, their outlines barely discernible, while others stood more clearly revealed, their silent forms imbued with a profound sense of stillness, as if caught in a perpetual, frozen dance. The very air here seemed to hum with a subtle, inexplicable energy, a gentle thrumming that resonated deep within him, a silent invitation to step further into its enigmatic embrace. A narrow, winding path of course, pale gravel snaked through the heart of the garden, disappearing into the shadows beyond, like a forgotten ribbon unfurling into the unknown. The statues, positioned seemingly at random, yet with an underlying, inexplicable harmony, created a series of silent tableaus, each one a frozen tableau of a forgotten narrative, a silent testament to a history that pulsed beneath the surface of the stones. Leonard felt an almost magnetic pull towards them, an irresistible urge to draw closer, to touch their cold, rough surfaces, to decipher the silent stories etched into their weathered forms. The light, filtering through the dense canopy, painted the garden in shifting hues of silver and deepest indigo, lending an otherworldly glow to the silent figures, as if they were bathed in the ethereal light of a perpetually dreaming moon. He felt a connection to this place, an immediate and profound resonance that vibrated through his very being, as if he had at last found a kindred spirit in the silent, ancient stones, a place where his own solitary artistic endeavors could find a sympathetic echo. The first night Leonard spent in his new home, the air was thick with the scent of old wood and the distant, melancholic sigh of the wind through the eaves. Sleep, however, proved an elusive companion, his mind a kaleidoscope of the day's quiet discoveries, particularly the enigmatic stone garden that lay concealed behind his house. A subtle disquiet, a frisson of something undefinable, had taken root within him, not a fear, but rather a profound, almost reverent wonder that pulsed with an insistent rhythm, urging him to return to that silent, ethereal realm. As the pale, watery dawn began to bleed across the horizon, painting the sky in soft washes of gray and rose, Leonard rose from his bed, his senses keenly attuned to the subtle shifts of the waking world. A faint, almost imperceptible scratching sound, like the whisper of dry leaves against stone, seemed to emanate from the garden, a sound that, while subtle, was utterly distinct in the pervasive quietude of the early morning. It was a sound that tugged at his curiosity, an unseen thread drawing him back towards the mystery that lay hidden beyond the ivy-clad wall. He dressed quickly, his movements imbued with an almost breathless anticipation, and descended the creaking stairs, his footsteps hushed and deliberate, as if fearful of disturbing the slumbering secrets of the house. Pushing aside the heavy, velvet curtain that separated his kitchen from the overgrown patio, he stepped once more into the cool, damp air of the garden. The air was still thick with the earthy perfume of dew-kissed leaves and ancient stone, but something was undeniably different. His eyes, accustomed to the dim light, immediately sought out the cluster of statues he had observed the previous evening, the figures that had stood like silent sentinels amidst the gnarled roots of ancient trees. What he saw sent a shiver, not of fear but of profound astonishment, rippling through him. The statues had moved. Their positions, subtly, undeniably altered, spoke of an unseen hand, a silent nightly rearrangement that defied the very laws of immobility that governed the world of stone. A figure that had stood with its back to him now faced the winding path, its sightless eyes seemingly fixed upon the distant horizon. Another, which had been half obscured by a curtain of moss, now stood clearly revealed, its delicate, outstretched hand seeming to beckon him closer. A gasp, soft and involuntary, escaped his lips. This was not the trick of fading light, nor the deception of a tired mind. The change was undeniable, precise, and utterly inexplicable. A tremor of something akin to awe, mingled with a profound sense of wonder, swept over him. He approached the statues with hesitant steps, his fingers trailing lightly over their cold, moss-kissed surfaces, as if seeking confirmation of their newfound mobility. The very air around them seemed to hum with a subtle, unidentifiable energy, a silent vibration that resonated deep within him. It was then, as his gaze drifted to the ground beneath the figures, that he noticed the faint, barely perceptible indentations in the pale gravel path, small, delicate depressions, like the imprints of tiny, bare feet, each one a testament to an unseen nocturnal promenade. These were not the haphazard marks of falling leaves or the subtle shifts of settling earth. They were distinct, deliberate imprints, each a silent step in a mysterious dance performed under the cloak of night. For several consecutive mornings, Leonard returned to the garden, a quiet ritual of discovery, his senses heightened, his mind acutely attuned to the subtle shifts and rearrangements. Each dawn brought a fresh surprise, a new configuration of the silent stone inhabitants. A statue that had previously stood alone now found itself in a silent embrace with another, their forms intertwined in an almost ethereal dance. A figure that had appeared to weep now held its head high, its stone gaze fixed upon the nascent light of the morning sky. The imprints on the gravel, though often faint and fleeting, continued to appear, silent witnesses to these nocturnal peregrinations. He began to meticulously sketch the garden's layout each evening, marking the precise positions of each statue, and then comparing these detailed drawings to the new arrangements he discovered with the rising sun. His scientific mind, trained in the precise observation of form and structure, struggled to reconcile these inexplicable phenomena with any logical explanation. The statues were solid, heavy, unyielding. Their movements defied the very laws of physics. His solitude, once a comforting cloak, now became an essential tool in his quiet investigation. He spoke of his discoveries to no one, knowing that such tales, whispered in the hushed, melancholic city, would be met with polite skepticism or, worse, with the gentle, pitying glances reserved for those whose minds had strayed too far into the realm of fancy. This secret, shared only with the silent stones and the whispering winds, became a profound and intimate bond, drawing him deeper into the enigmatic heart of the garden. He began to spend his evenings within its confines, sitting upon a moss-covered stone bench, his gaze fixed upon the silent forms, waiting, watching, hoping to catch a glimpse of the nocturnal ballet. The air grew thick with the scent of night-blooming jasmine, its sweet perfume mingling with the earthy aroma of damp stone, creating an intoxicating atmosphere that seemed to blur the edges of reality. The moonlight, when it managed to pierce through the dense canopy of leaves, painted the garden in shifting patterns of silver and deep shadow, lending an ethereal glow to the silent figures. One particularly moonlit night, as the air grew heavy with the scent of impending rain, Leonard sat motionless on his stone bench, his breath held captive in his lungs, his eyes unblinking, fixed upon the nearest cluster of statues. The silence was profound, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl and the soft, rhythmic drip of water from an unseen leaf. And then it happened. A subtle shimmer, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor, seemed to pass through the very air, as if the fabric of reality itself had rippled. A statue, that of a slender, graceful maiden with her head bowed in perpetual sorrow, seemed to subtly, almost imperceptibly shift. Her head, previously lowered, now tilted upwards, her stone gaze seemingly fixed upon the pale, ephemeral moon. A faint, almost musical sigh, like the rustle of silk against ancient stone, seemed to emanate from her form. Leonard felt his heart pound a frantic rhythm against his ribs, a mixture of awe and profound disbelief washing over him. He rubbed his eyes, half expecting the vision to dissolve, to reveal itself as a trick of the moonlight, a figment of his overactive imagination. But when he opened them again, the maiden's head remained tilted, her silent, sorrowful gaze fixed upon the heavens. A soft, almost whispered word escaped his lips, a sound lost in the vast, encompassing silence of the night. It was not a dream, not an illusion. The statues were alive, animated by some unseen, unknown force that pulsed beneath the ancient soil of the garden. This revelation, both terrifying and profoundly exhilarating, propelled him deeper into the mystery. He began to observe not just their movements, but the subtle changes in their expressions, the nuanced shifts in their posture, as if they were engaged in a slow, silent narrative, a story unfolding in the deep quietude of the night. Each shift, each subtle change, became a clue, a whispered word in a language he was slowly, intuitively beginning to understand. The moon, a silent, silver witness to these nocturnal transformations, became his constant companion, its pale, ethereal light illuminating the unfolding drama. He noticed that the statues often seemed to gravitate towards a particular section of the garden, a secluded alcove overgrown with a tangle of jasmine and ancient wisteria, where a lone, intricately carved stone bench stood, its surface worn smooth by the passage of countless hands. The imprints on the gravel were consistently deeper there, more numerous, suggesting a prolonged presence, a silent gathering. It was as if this alcove was a focal point, a silent stage upon which the most significant moments of their nocturnal ballet took place. A profound sense of purpose began to infuse Leonard's days. His artistic endeavors, while still cherished, now took a secondary role to this enigmatic discovery. The garden had become his muse, his silent teacher, its very existence a challenge to his understanding of the world, a whispered invitation to delve deeper into the realms of the unknown. He began to spend his days sketching not only the garden's layout but also the individual forms of the statues, attempting to capture the subtle nuances of their expressions, the ethereal quality of their movements. His charcoal pencils danced across the paper, translating the silent language of stone into tangible forms, each stroke an act of reverence, a tribute to the profound mystery that unfolded before his eyes. He noticed a recurring theme in their forms. A pair of statues, one a tall, slender male figure with a face of noble sorrow, the other a smaller, more delicate female figure, often appeared to be intertwined, their forms reaching for each other, their stone hands almost touching. Their positions, more than any others, shifted with a poignant consistency, as if their silent, eternal dance was a yearning, a perpetual quest for reunion. This recurring motif, this silent, stone-etched narrative of two figures forever seeking each other, began to stir a profound empathy within him, a quiet understanding of a love frozen in time. The garden, once merely a place of mystery, was slowly revealing itself as a repository of a deeply melancholic, yet profoundly beautiful love story, a tale whispered not in words, but in the silent language of shifting stone. The silent, nocturnal dance of the stone figures became the central, captivating rhythm of Leonard's life, a mesmerizing ballet performed under the silver gaze of the moon. Each morning, he approached the garden with a renewed sense of breathless anticipation, his heart beating a quiet crescendo as he observed the latest configurations of the silent inhabitants. The imprints on the gravel, once a mere curiosity, now spoke a more eloquent language, each faint depression a silent step in a profound, ongoing narrative. He began to see not just random movements, but a discernible pattern, a gradual, agonizing unfolding of a story whispered in the language of stone and shadow. The statues, particularly the pair that so often appeared intertwined, seemed to be progressing along a specific trajectory, their silent journey always leading towards the secluded alcove, the ancient stone bench nestled beneath the weeping wisteria. It was as if they were engaged in a slow, deliberate pilgrimage, a perpetual striving towards a singular, destined point. His days were now consumed by this quiet obsession. His own sculpting tools lay dormant, forgotten amidst the dust of his atelier. His hands, once perpetually engaged in coaxing life from inert matter, now spent their hours tracing the faint lines on the gravel, sketching the ethereal forms of the stone figures, attempting to decipher the silent grammar of their movements. He read forgotten treatises on ancient folklore, whispered legends of enchanted gardens and animated statues, seeking any echo, however faint, of the profound mystery unfolding before his eyes. But no book, no whispered tale, truly prepared him for the raw, poignant beauty of the narrative that was slowly, painstakingly, revealing itself. It was a story born of silent yearning, of a love that transcended the boundaries of flesh and blood, a passion frozen in time, yet paradoxically, eternally alive. One particular morning, as a fine, misting rain began to fall, painting the garden in muted washes of gray and pearl, Leonard noticed something new, something that deepened the profound mystery and tugged at the very core of his artistic soul. Strewn upon the gravel path, nestled among the fresh imprints of tiny feet, were small, crystalline fragments, shimmering faintly with an ethereal, almost internal light. They were not ordinary pebbles, nor shards of broken glass. They possessed a luminous quality, a delicate translucence that defied their stony nature. He picked one up, turning it gently in his palm, feeling its smooth, cool surface against his skin. It was impossibly light, as if it held no true weight, and pulsed with a faint, almost imperceptible warmth. As he held it, a fleeting image, like a wisp of smoke, drifted through his mind. A tear, perfectly formed, caught in a moment of profound sorrow. The following mornings brought more of these shimmering fragments, each one appearing near the statues, particularly the male figure and the weeping maiden, as if shed from their very forms during their nocturnal peregrinations. Leonard began to collect them, carefully placing each one in a small, velvet-lined box he kept hidden away, a growing treasure of silent, crystalline tears. The sheer number of them, the consistent appearance each morning, suggested a profound and ongoing sorrow, a silent weeping that resonated from the very heart of the stone. These fragments, he intuitively understood, were not merely decorative. They were imbued with a powerful emotional resonance, each one a silent testament to a deep, unending grief, a profound longing that had permeated the very fabric of the garden. The presence of these crystalline fragments, these silent, petrified tears, lent a new, poignant layer to the unfolding narrative. Leonard began to perceive the movements of the statues not merely as physical shifts, but as emotional expressions, a silent ballet of longing and despair. The male figure, often positioned with an outstretched hand, seemed to be perpetually reaching, yearning for something just beyond his grasp. The maiden, her head often bowed, her form subtly angled away from him, conveyed a profound and quiet sorrow, as if burdened by an unspeakable grief. Their dance was a tragic pas de deux, a beautiful, agonizing portrayal of a love forever separated, eternally striving for a reunion that remained perpetually out of reach. He began to spend his nights not just observing, but listening, his senses attuned to the subtle whispers of the garden, the unseen murmurs of its ancient inhabitants. The air, even on the stillest nights, seemed to hum with a faint, almost imperceptible music, a melancholic melody that seemed to rise from the very earth itself, a lament carried on the gentle currents of the night wind. It was the music of sorrow, the silent symphony of longing, a profound echo of the love story frozen in time. He found himself drifting into a state of heightened awareness, his dreams interwoven with the silent narratives of the stone figures, their grief becoming his own, their yearning a reflection of a deeper, universal longing. Sleep, when it finally claimed him, was often light and fragmented, punctuated by vivid, dreamlike sequences of figures moving in slow, ethereal dances, their stone faces etched with an ancient sorrow. One particularly significant morning, as the first rays of the sun pierced through the dense canopy, dappling the garden in shifting patterns of gold and shadow, Leonard found the two central statues, the male figure and the maiden, positioned closer than ever before, their stone hands almost touching, their forms leaning towards each other with an almost unbearable tenderness. And beneath their joined hands, nestled on the gravel, was not another crystalline tear, but a small, intricately carved stone heart, its surface smooth and cool to the touch, pulsating with the faintest, almost imperceptible warmth. It was a perfect miniature, a testament to an unseen artistry, imbued with an almost palpable sense of emotion. This was not a fragment, but a whole, a complete, symbolic gesture, a profound revelation. Leonard carefully picked up the stone heart, holding it gently in his cupped hands, feeling its quiet weight, its subtle warmth. It felt ancient, yet vibrant, as if it contained the very essence of a love story spanning centuries. The surface, though smooth, bore faint, almost imperceptible etchings, like a forgotten inscription in a language he could not quite decipher, yet instinctively understood. As he held it, a rush of images, vivid and fleeting, surged through his mind. A grand, opulent ballroom, figures dancing in a swirl of color and light, a young woman with hair like spun moonlight, her eyes luminous with joy, a noble young man, his gaze filled with an unutterable devotion. Then, a sudden, jarring shift. A shadowed figure, a whispered curse, the chilling touch of an icy hand, and the sound of stone hardening, slowly, inexorably, engulfing the vibrant forms, freezing them forever in a moment of desperate longing. The vision faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Leonard breathless, his heart pounding in his chest. The stone heart, still warm in his hands, now felt heavier, imbued with the weight of a profound tragedy. The tears, he realized, were not merely tears of sorrow. They were the petrified essence of a love frozen, a grief crystallized. The garden was not just a collection of statues. It was a living, breathing testament to an enchanted, yet tragic, love story, a place where the echoes of a powerful curse still resonated, where the very stones wept for a love lost, a reunion perpetually deferred. The silence of the garden was no longer merely quietude. It was the hush of an ancient, enchanted sleep, a profound slumber from which the two lovers, frozen in their stone forms, yearned to awaken. This profound realization galvanized Leonard. He was no longer a passive observer. He was a witness, a confidant, perhaps even a key to unraveling the curse that held the garden in its silent thrall. His artistic sensibility, once focused on the mere creation of beautiful forms, now found a deeper purpose: to understand, to interpret, and perhaps to help free the silent, suffering souls trapped within the stone. The melancholic beauty of the garden, once a source of quiet contemplation, now took on a new, urgent dimension, a profound challenge that resonated with the deepest instincts of his compassionate heart. The story of the stone garden, once a whispered secret, now demanded to be heard, to be understood, to be brought to its poignant, yet perhaps hopeful conclusion. Armed with the profound revelation of the stone heart and the fleeting, sorrowful visions it had imparted, Leonard's purpose in the garden shifted from passive observation to an active, almost desperate, quest for understanding. The garden, once a place of serene mystery, now pulsed with the undeniable undercurrents of an ancient tragedy, a love story entombed within stone. He meticulously examined the stone heart, its faint etchings appearing less like random patterns and more like a forgotten script, a silent language woven into its very being. His fingers traced the subtle grooves, his mind yearning to decipher the hidden message, to unlock the secret of the curse that held the lovers in their petrified embrace. The crystalline tears, collected and stored in his velvet box, now held a new significance. They were not just expressions of sorrow, but perhaps fragments of the very enchantment itself, imbued with the essence of their trapped souls. He began to spend entire nights in the garden, no longer merely observing, but attempting to communicate, however subtly, with the silent figures. He spoke to them in hushed tones, his voice a soft murmur against the pervasive silence, narrating the beauty of the moon, the whisper of the wind through the wisteria, the promise of a distant dawn. He played a small, worn music box he had owned since childhood, its tinkling melody, a sorrowful waltz, echoing through the moonlit space, hoping that the gentle strains might stir something within their stone hearts, some distant memory of a life lived, a dance shared. He noticed, with a frisson of hopeful recognition, that during these musical interludes, the male and female statues seemed to subtly lean closer, their forms appearing to vibrate with an almost imperceptible tremor, as if the melody, however faint, resonated with a deep, forgotten chord within their petrified souls. His research intensified. He journeyed to the city's ancient, dust-laden library, its shelves groaning under the weight of forgotten tomes, its air thick with the scent of decaying parchment and quiet wisdom. He delved into obscure texts on curses and enchantments, on the peculiar properties of stone and the transformative power of true love. He unearthed legends of moonlit gardens where time itself became fluid, where human forms were transmuted into inanimate objects as punishment for hubris, or as the tragic consequence of a jealous rival's malevolence. Among these forgotten narratives, he stumbled upon a faded, crumbling manuscript, its pages brittle with age, detailing the tale of a noble family, once residents of a grand, now vanished, estate on the very outskirts of the city. The description of the estate, its layout, and particularly its expansive, secluded garden, bore an uncanny resemblance to his own property, and the story it recounted sent a chill of profound recognition through him. The manuscript spoke of a wealthy count, known for his vast collection of exquisite sculptures, and his beautiful daughter Leonard, a detail that sent a strange, prophetic shiver down his spine, who had fallen deeply in love with a humble, yet exceptionally gifted young sculptor named Julian. Their love was a passionate, all-consuming fire, a union of kindred spirits bound by their shared appreciation for beauty and the silent language of art. But their union was forbidden by the Count, who deemed Julian unworthy of his daughter's hand. In a fit of jealous rage and a desperate attempt to thwart their clandestine meetings in the garden, a rival suitor, a sorcerer of formidable, albeit malevolent, power, had cast a terrible spell. The lovers, caught in a secret embrace beneath the moonlit wisteria, were transmuted into stone, their forms frozen forever in a moment of desperate longing, their tears crystallizing into shimmering fragments upon the gravel. The spell, designed to inflict perpetual sorrow, allowed them a brief, fleeting moment of sentience each night, a chance to move, to yearn, to weep, but never to break free from their stony prisons. The garden itself, the manuscript concluded, was enchanted, its very essence intertwined with the curse, its ancient stones bound to the fate of the petrified lovers. The revelation of the manuscript was a profound shock, yet also a validation, a confirmation of his deepest intuitions. The pieces of the puzzle, once scattered and disparate, now began to coalesce into a coherent, agonizing whole. The crystalline tears, the shifting statues, the central pair, the stone heart, all spoke of the same tragic narrative. The male figure in his garden was Julian, the sculptor, the maiden, his beloved Leonard, a poignant echo across centuries. The stone heart, then, was not just a symbol, but a fragment of their very essence, a key perhaps to unlocking the curse. The manuscript, however, offered no clear solution, no simple incantation to reverse the ancient magic. It spoke only of a love so profound, so enduring, that it might, in time, and with a sacrifice of immense emotional resonance, be capable of breaking the enchantment. Returning to the garden, the weight of this newly acquired knowledge pressed heavily upon him. He approached the statues of Julian and Elara with a renewed sense of urgency, his gaze imbued with a profound empathy. He understood now the depth of their suffering, the agony of their perpetual yearning, the silent torment of a love frozen in time. The very air around them seemed to vibrate with their unspoken anguish, a palpable sorrow that resonated deep within his own heart. He held the stone heart, turning it over and over in his hands, willing it to reveal its final, elusive secret. The faint etchings, once indecipherable, now seemed to pulse with a subtle light, as if attempting to communicate directly with his soul. One night, as the moon, full and luminous, bathed the garden in an almost blinding silver light, Leonard felt an irresistible urge to place the stone heart within the outstretched, petrified hand of Julian. As his fingers guided the heart into his cold, unyielding grasp, a profound tremor rippled through the garden, a tremor that shook the very foundations of the ancient trees, causing the leaves to rustle with a sound like 1,000 whispered sighs. The air grew thick with a sudden, potent energy, a tangible charge that raised the tiny hairs on his arms. A faint, ethereal glow began to emanate from Julian's stone form, slowly spreading to Leara's, their forms bathed in an otherworldly luminescence. The other statues in the garden, too, seemed to vibrate with this newfound energy, their static forms swaying almost imperceptibly, as if in silent anticipation. Then, a sound, unlike any he had ever heard, filled the air. A deep, resonant hum, a profound, almost primal groan that seemed to emanate from the very earth itself, rising through the roots of the ancient trees and permeating every stone in the garden. The ground beneath Leonard's feet trembled, not violently, but with a deep, pulsing rhythm, like the beating heart of the earth itself. The ethereal glow intensified, enveloping Julian and Elara in a swirling vortex of shimmering light, their outlines blurring, dissolving into a luminous haze. A wave of profound emotion washed over Leonard, a mingled sense of sorrow and hope, a quiet understanding of the immense power of love, even when trapped by the cruelest of enchantments. As the light reached its blinding crescendo, a single, clear note, like the purest tone of a crystal bell, resonated through the garden, echoing from the ancient walls of the house, reverberating through the very air. And then, as quickly as it had appeared, the light began to recede, fading slowly, gracefully, like a whispered promise. As the last vestiges of the luminescence dissolved into the lingering shadows of the night, Leonard strained his eyes, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The statues of Julian and Elara were still there, their forms as before, still entwined, still reaching. But something had changed, subtly, profoundly. The perpetual sorrow that had etched itself into their stone faces seemed to have softened, replaced by a delicate, almost imperceptible tranquility. And in Julian's stone hand, the heart glowed with a faint, steady light, a silent testament to the enduring power of their love. The curse had not been broken, not yet, but something profound had shifted. A crucial step had been taken. The garden, he realized, was finally beginning to breathe again. The luminous surge and the resonant hum that had permeated the garden, though fleeting, had left behind a tangible alteration, a profound shift in the very atmosphere of the ancient space. The air, once heavy with the silent weight of prolonged sorrow, now felt lighter, imbued with a delicate, almost ethereal buoyancy, as if a great, unspoken burden had been subtly lifted. The faint, melancholic music that had once woven itself through the night now carried a note of quiet hope, a gentle, sustained chord of anticipation. Leonard's perception, too, had undergone a subtle but undeniable transformation. He felt more attuned to the silent pulse of the garden, his senses more finely honed, as if he now possessed a deeper, more profound understanding of its hidden language. The most striking change was in the statues of Julian and Elara. While still undeniably stone, their forms now exuded a delicate warmth, a subtle vibrancy that had been absent before. The lines on their faces, once etched with an unbearable grief, had softened into an expression of profound peace, a quiet serenity that spoke of a deep, inner calm. The stone heart in Julian's hand continued to emit a faint, steady glow, a perpetual beacon of their enduring love, its light a quiet testament to the enduring power of connection that had transcended the rigid boundaries of their stony prisons. The imprints on the gravel, though still present, were no longer solely indicative of restless yearning. They now suggested a more purposeful, perhaps even joyful progression, a silent waltz of two souls slowly, inexorably, moving towards a destined reunion. Leonard continued his nightly vigil, a silent witness to the subtle unfolding of their fate. He observed that Julian and Eara's movements, while still limited by their petrified forms, now carried a distinct trajectory, a clear, purposeful path that led them, night after night, closer and closer to the very center of the garden, to a spot where the gnarled roots of an ancient oak tree intertwined with the smooth surface of a moss-covered stone fountain. It was a place that seemed to exude an ancient, quiet power, a sacred space where the very air vibrated with a profound and timeless energy. The other statues, too, seemed to respond to this gravitational pull, subtly reorienting themselves, their silent gazes fixed upon the central pair, as if they too were silent participants in this slow, enchanting procession. As the weeks turned into months, the stone heart in Julian's hand began to pulse with increasing intensity, its light growing brighter, stronger, until it cast long, dancing shadows across the ancient stones, illuminating the garden with an ethereal glow that rivaled the pale light of the moon. And then, one night, as the moon hung full and luminous in the ink-black sky, casting the garden in an almost blinding silver, the light from the heart reached a blinding crescendo, a luminous explosion that momentarily eclipsed the very stars. The profound hum returned, deeper, more resonant than before, vibrating through the very earth, through the ancient stones, through Leonard's very bones. The air crackled with energy, and the scent of jasmine and damp earth intensified, mingled with a new, ephemeral perfume, a scent like freshly bloomed roses and distant rain. Leonard watched, breathless, as the light consumed Julian and Elara, their forms dissolving into a swirling vortex of iridescent luminescence. The sounds of cracking stone, subtle at first, then growing louder, filled the night, not a violent shattering, but a gradual organic shedding, like the gentle crumbling of ancient, brittle leaves. The light pulsed, contracted, and then, slowly, gracefully, began to recede, like a tide pulling back from the shore, revealing, in its wake, not stone but flesh. Standing where the statues had once stood, bathed in the soft, lingering glow of the moonlight, were Julian and Elara, no longer figures of cold, unyielding stone, but vibrant, breathing beings of flesh and blood. Julian, his hair the color of midnight, his eyes the deep hue of twilight skies, reached out a hand, his touch no longer cold stone, but warm, living skin, to the beautiful Elara, her hair like spun moonlight, her eyes luminous with joy, tears, no longer petrified, streaming freely down her face. Their embrace was silent, profound, an embrace born of centuries of yearning, of love transcending the boundaries of time and enchantment. A soft, collective sigh, like the gentle rustle of leaves in a summer breeze, seemed to emanate from the other statues in the garden. A silent recognition, a shared moment of profound release. The curse was broken. The garden, once a silent testament to eternal sorrow, now hummed with the vibrant energy of renewed life, its very stones seeming to exhale a sigh of profound relief. The other statues, though still stone, seemed to radiate a newfound tranquility, their forms imbued with a quiet sense of peace, as if their silent vigils had at last come to their joyous conclusion. The crystalline tears that Leonard had collected, once symbols of enduring grief, now shimmered with a soft, ethereal light within his velvet box, transformed into tokens of profound and triumphant love. Julian and Elara, their hands intertwined, their gazes fixed upon each other, approached the still stunned Leonard. Their eyes, filled with a warmth and gratitude that transcended words, held his in a silent acknowledgement. Julian, his voice a rich, resonant baritone, a voice that carried the melodic echoes of centuries of unspoken yearning, spoke, his words like hushed poetry against the stillness of the night. You, who heard the whispers of our stone, who saw the tears in our silence, who held the heart of our love, you have freed us. Leonard, overwhelmed by the profound beauty of the moment, could only nod, tears, no longer sorrowful, but joyous, blurring his vision. The following days were filled with a quiet, profound joy. Julian and Elara, now free, spoke of their long imprisonment, of the moments of fleeting sentience each night, of their unending yearning for each other, of the slow, agonizing dance of their stone forms, always striving for a reunion that had seemed perpetually out of reach. They spoke of the subtle shifts in the garden, of the enduring power of the enchantment, and of the flicker of hope that had ignited within them with Leonard's arrival, a hope that had grown stronger with each of his loving, observant gestures. They were a testament to a love that had defied time, a passion that had endured the harshest of curses, emerging, at last, vibrant and renewed. The garden, now transformed, became a sanctuary of beauty and quiet reflection. The ancient wisteria bloomed with a renewed vigor, its blossoms a cascade of fragrant lavender. The rose bushes, once gnarled and wild, now burst forth with an abundance of vibrant, fragrant blooms. The air hummed not with sorrow, but with a gentle, harmonious energy, a profound sense of peace. Julian, the sculptor, with Elara, his beloved muse, began to restore the garden, working in silent, harmonious companionship, tending to its ancient beauty, creating new, vibrant forms that honored the history of the space, but now sang of freedom and enduring love. They carved a new statue, a tribute to the man who had heard the silent whispers of the stone, a figure of graceful, contemplative beauty, placing it prominently near the ancient stone bench where Leonard had spent so many nights observing their silent dance. Leonard, the sculptor, found his own artistic spirit rekindled, imbued with a new depth of understanding and inspiration. His hands, once focused on solitary creation, now worked with a renewed sense of purpose, his art infused with the profound lessons learned from the silent suffering and eventual triumph of Julian and Elara. He continued to sculpt, but his creations now held a deeper resonance, a silent testament to the enduring power of love, the transformative nature of empathy, and the quiet magic that could be found in the most unexpected of places. The stone garden, once a place of gothic beauty and hidden sorrow, had become a testament to the enduring power of love, a silent, living chronicle of a curse broken and a dream, long dormant, finally brought to vibrant, breathtaking life. And in the heart of that garden, beneath the ancient wisteria, Julian and Elara, forever entwined, lived out their days, their love a silent, vibrant melody woven into the very fabric of the enchanted earth, a profound lullaby for all who would listen.